talked with the supervisors, city leaders, county leaders, harbor district leaders. Everybody has a little different perception of what the plan is. They all give you something that you're not consistent, there's not a common thread. So we've done research, looked at it. He set the stage, what we talked about last time, the jurisdictional agencies within the bay, within the water area, obviously is the state. State Lands Commission is the one in control. The administrator is the Coastal Commission. Outside the water area, we have the land, in which majority of it is the county, and then you have the portion that's the city. Overall, you have the harbor district that has some authority over harbor business in the water areas and the land areas. So when we start talking about the thing that seems to be the most dominant is that, yes, there's a Humboldt Bay management plan that's going to dictate and tells us what's going to happen with our port.
I'm going to take the front, thank you.
So this is where we started. A little off there, but notice that this was adopted in 2007. Okay, executive summary. Now my purpose here is to describe what's the best illustration of what our plan is for the Port of Humboldt Bay. It's not in terms of what people want it to be, it's in terms of what's the legal, lawful, adopted plan that's supposed to dictate our decisions for development of land use around the bay. So the executive summary, and the shot of it right down there, it just says basically statutory purpose of the district. District is the one who adopted the management plan. This is the harbor district's document. Not the counties, not the cities. Although they did review it and there was some approval of it, it's not a formal document of either the county or the cities. So there's a question whether or not it's actually part of the coastal local program and the county's general plan. We're not going to go, that's not a topic today. But the statutory purpose of the district is to manage the bay. When we look at the contents of the management plan, that's the part that really establishes what we're going to do with our bay. It's the policy document. Everything else is the study, all the references, everything. But this part is it. Of that small portion right there deals with the harbor. So it's a big document for just a little part. When we look at the chapter overview, there's 2 pages. That part right there seems to be the part that we want to focus on. And it says that in 2003, the county and the district, the cities, they got together and they adopted a port or a bay revitalization plan. That's the key part there, that the recommendations included in that revitalization plan that are important for the district management of harbor facilities are included in this plan. Everything that we've looked at in terms of references to what's going to happen with the port fall back on the revitalization plan. And this is illustrated with it. So, when we look at the revitalization plan, notice, adopted 2003. Okay. That seems to be the common thread, the basic of what is planned for our port. Look at the table of contents, the first one, executive summary, that's what I'm taking off from. It says the Humboldt Bay Harbor Recreation District, along with the city of Eureka and Humboldt County, has undertaken the Port of Humboldt Bay Harbor Revitalization Plan, can't pronounce that, aimed at establishing a new and sustainable maritime focus for the community. Big words. I'm going to go through because I think this is important that we look at. The port strategy for revitalization involves 2 phases. Again, keep in mind it's 2003. Channel deepening and landside improvement. After a 12-year effort, the Humboldt Bay Channel Deepening Project was completed. A new 48-foot deep entrance channel, a little deep channels are now provided for greater navigation safety and improved vessel economy. The reduction of light loading and increased economic scale now possible at Humboldt Bay, particularly for the larger forest product carriers, promises to improve the port's competitiveness for marine trade. So, what's the problem? What's the picture here that's not quite right? Okay.
It was a one-time deal.
Yes. And then with the completion of the deepening project, they go on. I think that's the key thing. Opportunities for expansion and continuation of existing agriculture and commercial fishing opportunities were also identified, but they talk basically about the industrial type of uses, or use of the bay. Here is where we get down to what the plan is. It's the one section of that whole document that tells what the vision is and the implementation. So when we turn to the pages that establishes the vision, that's it. That page says what the plan is for our port. Recommend, and I'm going to go through it because I think we need to focus on this. The recommended plan results in a vision for Humboldt Bay incorporating several elements. One, people-oriented activities to the north and industry to the south on both the Eureka side of the harbor and the Samoa Peninsula side, considering the Samoa Township development. That's the Danko project. Large parcel marine-dependent industrial development on Samoa Peninsula south of the Samoa Township. Basically everything on this peninsula that's south of us. Niche dry and liquid bulk cargoes on Samoa Peninsula and at Phil's Landing Terminal. Potential public and private development of marine-dependent industrial and bulk docks. Long-term focus on downtown waterfront tourism and marine science with the Dock D and the Balloon Track development. Permanent homes for agriculture and commercial fishing work areas. And active development of coastal barge feeders and private terminals as market conditions warrant. That's the plan. The implementation plan that goes along with it has several elements. I'm going to quickly go through them because, again, it's important. Implementation actions, recommended actions that talk about planning, zoning, utilities, transportation infrastructure, follow-up study work, government relations, and other issues. But the first is to remove the airport use deed restriction that we've talked about before. And that's dealing with the airport, which is kind of south of us. Resolution of issues dealing with the Redwood deck, the Redwood dock, which is obvious, just that is immediately south of us. Planning for the Phil's Landing. Development of a tourism and marine science cluster at the Dock B and Balloon Track, that's on the Eureka side. Consideration for the coastal feeder barge services. And then agriculture and commercial fishermen's work area. In the document, when they talk about the commercial fishermen's work area, what they're talking about is Woodley Island. That island is dedicated for commercial fishing. Not for residential or for recreational use, but for the commercial fishing. That's the priority. And then proactive identify and pursue opportunities that are available to us, means a marketing type of plan. Incorporation of the revitalization plan into the general land use plan. Key, underlined, to ensure ease of local permitting. And remember, that's why we are here now, because we're frustrated with the delays and the costs for obtaining permits just for businesses that want to come in. And I want to stop here because this is a key thing. When the outfit that was talking about coming in with the ore, bringing ore in and processing and then extracting the gold, that was 2 years ago. When they decided to leave, we asked them, met with them and asked them, why did you do that? And their response was because We want to predict success. We look at Humboldt Bay, everything that's happened, we predict failure. How clear can you get it? I mean, we're not going to get businesses here until they can look at us and predict success. We don't have that to offer. One of the key obstacles is our slow, delayed, costly permit process. And the last is programming CEQA. We know environmental issues that need to be dealt with. It's been 12 years since we've had the opportunity. We've done nothing as far as bringing in and trying to consolidate our CEQA review, get land banking for wetlands and other stuff like that. So basically, there's been no effort towards that. Now, these are all recommended implementations since 2003. With that right there, we'll go back to what the vision is. That defines our vision. That's what we, the citizens, lawfully say needs to be done by our government officials to implement. This is what they need to accomplish. And it's the most lawful test that we have. And what I say is if it's not reflective of what we want, we need to change it. Because right now we're saddled with an old plan that is, what, 2000, what is that? It's 15 years old plus? Okay. But when you look back at the plan on page 54, this is the management plan now. It talks about relationships with state and federal requirements. And it talks about state agencies. Page 55 talks about the Coastal Commission. So that's what it says about the Coastal Commission. And I'd like to go ahead and point out that I'm sure you can't read it. I'm having a hard time reading it. But the bottom line is the Coastal Commission has jurisdiction. Coastal Commission reviews do not always result in approvals for projects that meet local jurisdiction requirements, resulting in differing results. I don't know who edited this, but okay. Thus, differences between Coastal Commission approval requirements and those of the district and other local agencies have emerged as a concern with respect to bay management. I think that's a problem. So that's my presentation. If anybody asks in terms of what's the plan for Humboldt County, for the Bay, the Port of Humboldt Bay, it goes back to that one page. That's it right there. I still don't know what it means. I look at what's being told to me and the public in terms of who one individual sees as being what's needed. Talk to another individual that has influence. Different answer. Talk to the third, talk to the fourth. No consistency, no common thread between them. I, as a professional planner, I have a difficult time trying to work, trying to analyze, trying to understand what's going on in terms of how we're going to spend our resources and stuff like that. So this illustrates my frustration. I think it kind of is a first start towards trying to get some resolution towards it. I do know that a couple agencies have already approached me and said, what can we do? We want to get proactive in terms of the planning for the port. And it comes right back to what are we going to do with the plan. My bottom line is this community, which includes the county, the city, the service agencies, the harbor district, needs a single collaborative plan of what we are going to be doing with our port. I don't care if it is this plan, if we reactivate this plan and define, clarify what it means. I don't care if we go through and do other studies. My focus, my objective personally is to get a single plan. Now what I don't know is in terms of what's going to happen for the update on the local coastal program. Hopefully that's going to be the answer, the solution. But that's my presentation. I'm opening up for discussion. And I'm going to ask that please, when you do ask a question or give a response, please stand up so that we can hear. Again, the main purpose is that we do have it on our website. People do look at the video, and I do get questions and calls about what we've talked about. People can't be here, but they want to hear. And the biggest complaint I have is that we cannot hear over the video questions and the comments being made. So please, when you do comment, please stand up and try to be vocal about it. Bob?
Yes, you mentioned opposition. What's the gist of the opposition?
I think that when Larry Ockley was here the last time, he kind of indicated what that would be. Larry is not the promoter or the advocate of this, but he did indicate that there are I don't want to put it. By raising the question, boy, thin ice here. In a sense that the Coastal Commission could be a nightmare if they chose to do so. We don't want to piss them off. That kind of attitude. I mean, I don't know a simpler way of saying it, but it's bottom line. Yes.
I'm wondering, this is important to all of us. I think we've all got kind of a single mind on the fact that a harbor plan that was designated in the Coastal Act for 5 ports, us being the 5th port, and does not have a harbor management plan. The rest of the ports are standalone. Can this group present that issue in and get it inculcated in the coastal update language? At least get that inculcated in the conversation. What do you think about that?
Well, I like the idea, and I think that, first of all, I trust that it's going to be. I think the cooperation that we've had with the existing planning program, the local coastal plan, is I think we're all consistent with. I don't see any variance. It's just a frustration in terms of trying to get through the process, the delays and stuff. But I'll ask the question here. I feel positive about it, and I think that that's going to be very clearly defined. Is anyone? Yes, I am.
Well, just I think it's important to really understand there's we have 3 local coastal programs in this area. We have the county's LCP, City of Eureka's LCP, and Arcata's LCP. The county right now is working on updating the Humboldt Bay area plan, but that plan, while it does address the bay, the county does not have land use authority in the bay. We do have land use authority around the bay. And that sort of overlaps the management plan. But the Harbor District uses their plan to issue their permits. We have 2 permitting authorities in our Humboldt Bay area plan, and that is Coastal Commission and the counties. So there are 2 separate permit jurisdictions. So anyway, when you talk about identifying this in an LCP, a harbor master plan is a functional equivalent of an LCP. So it would become a 4th LCP on the bay.
Yes. And I think that the message I always take back is that, again, we're talking about 3 separate agencies. We're talking about the county that has jurisdiction and interest and influence. We're talking about the city that has jurisdiction, influence. And we're also talking about the city of Arcata and the Harbor District. The question is who is guiding, where is the priority in terms of how we're going to be issuing permits, doing our local plans so that they're all adoptable. What's the consistency and the common thread? And that's my main concern, is that's not defined. I think we're getting there, and Dennis, I agree with you. I think that it's going to help that when we're vocal about it and we're saying this is what we represent. We are representing what we see to be the community will to have one common vision of how we're going to use our port. I know there are other questions out there. So.
So I think that, 2003 is a long time ago. So it seems like we need to, as a group, present some sort of plan that we will update this. Because, for example, Dock B is fallow. Nobody's got any plans for Dock B. Even though it would be really nice to have Dock B if we ever have cruise ships. Because we've just been piggybacking on the Schneider dock, which is now kind of like not operational anymore. So, Dock B is not happening. Balloon track, Caltrans just said, well, there's so many problems with the, brownfield stuff with the balloon track. We're not even looking at that coster couplet anymore. That's what they said at the meeting. Because, so the whole balloon track thing that was going to be, that was mentioned in here as being part of the plan is defunct. So there's a whole bunch of stuff in here that is just not even realistic anymore, or needs to be looked at again to decide, do we want to have Dock B functioning for us, in case we ever can predict success at having cruise ships, because, we can't have cruise ships unless we have 2 years, that we can look ahead 2 years and say, we will be dredged and we will be functional. And we can't promise that from year to year. Because, there's just no promising anything for our harbor. And so that's where the rubber hits the road, that we need to have this whole thing updated, and maybe that's the time to get everybody to try to sit down at the table and say, let's come up with a new plan that everybody can agree on, and make that the local coastal plan.
Will be one of.
But to create them, to make them all into one somehow. Are they all that different?
Well,
I mean, if you said, one group said they ceded it to the harbor district, the water, and one said they ceded to the county the land, one said the city the
well,
waterfront.
all of our respective LCPs cover areas that the district would not have authority over. But if, I would imagine if the district chose to move forward with the port management plan, which would be a functional equivalent of an LCP, I would presume there would be discussions with the other 3 LCP authorities as to where the boundaries of that would be, and who would have the permit authority, which is essentially what a port management plan would do, is give permit authority to the district. It wouldn't remove the land use authority that the cities and the county would have that underlies that still.
I'll come back to you, Kim, but quickly, in response to that, the answer is yes. But remember what we talked about, what led us to here today was the discussion in terms of the certified, Coastal Commission certified port master plan. Our focus is the harbor, but it's also mainly the port portion of it. What that is we have one port management plan adopted by all the jurisdictional agencies, and you can go ahead and proceed, make decisions. That's exactly what we want, type of thing. We don't have that. What the discussion was is that the law provides all the other ports, and they've utilized it, that if you have a certified port management plan, you get to administer the Coastal Commission permits. And that's what our objective is kind of towards. Ken, and then
yeah, we're a victim of the original creation of the harbor district. Every other port has state legislation that identifies where it is and what's the responsibility. When this harbor district was created, there were concerns about other things than docks and loading areas and ships. They were concerned about recreation and the environmental issues. And as a result of that, the distinction between land use responsibilities weren't as clear as it is maybe in the San Diego port, for example, which has distinct areas of port responsibility for which they have their own land use obligations according to legislation. So it could still be that to be consistent with the other ports, this community could go back to the legislature and piggyback similar language to identify specific responsibilities to port activities, so you could manage a port according to port values, and address other areas not as part of the port in a different way. The only other way to do that is to have all of the competing land use plans developed so that they're all compatible with one another. And I don't think I'll live long enough to see that. So I don't know how we get there from here, because the end of the race keeps varying depending on community opinions of what's important and what's not important. The easiest thing that when Larry Mallon and I worked on the last deep dredging project, we looked at that with Jack Alderson about going to the state legislature. Nobody wanted to do that because they didn't think it was needed. And remember, this harbor district was created about the same time as the Coastal Commission got voted in. So there wasn't a big concern about any potential conflict at that time or disagreement in responsibility. But you know, if you go to Oakland, they can build what they want to on the property because it's defined as this boundary is what's approved by the state, and the port has management responsibility for all of this. The Coastal Commission is a third-party agency that any CEQA document would go to for review, but its input, and the Coastal Commission does not have final jurisdiction control over the port's decision process. I don't know how to get here from there, or there from here.
Well, that was my question. Isn't this ultimately going to require an act of the legislature to get it resolved without having to go through a tremendous amount of votes? And how do we get that done? How do we get the legislature to act sooner rather than
Well, there is a difference of opinion, a legal opinion. There is a defendable position that we do not have to go back and have legislative change, that the law, the way that it is written, because it's so vague, opens the door. But I think everybody says the prudent way is to go back and clear it up with the legislature. So yes, I think that we're definitely headed down, and that's one of the objectives, I think, of our group, is headed down to initiate some sort of legislation that allows us the same opportunities as the other ports in the state. Dennis?
You know, I'd suggest that we have Wood and McGuire come to one of our harbor meetings and actually address our questions directly to them in a forum where we all can hear, not just, you know, when we have our private conversations with them.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I think that my response to that is yes. But again, it's just kind of what's the picture that we want to set as what do we want to set as the picture of success? And I think that's what we need to define. That's kind of what we've been bouncing back and forth, is to kind of get feedback in terms of what is that picture. Normally I've been advocating that we in our community, with the county and everybody else, needs to be focused on getting a certified port management plan. I think that from the purposes of the harbor working group, that goes far to address what our concern is in terms of having a single collaborative vision in terms of what we're going to be doing on the port and working towards it. Gary, and then, I'm sorry,
Larry, as part of the port development plan, whatever you want to call it, what consideration is being given to ground transportation? I mean, we can offload a bunch of ships, but all you got is Highway 101 going north and going south. There isn't an easy way to get product to the markets.
yes. Yeah, I think the railroad, most of us do talk about the east-west railroad, but Personally, I don't see a port functioning without the railroad, but
There you go.
That won't.
Which came first, the chicken or the egg? That's my point.
can you go ahead?
The complexity with us is that this harbor district was voted in. It was a county-wide vote, and it has responsibilities outside of this port. To have a managed port activity, you have to define the area of the port responsibility by boundary and by authority, and the people I talk to are uncertain about how the vote to create the district can be set aside, kind of, without creating conflict. And so we've had discussions over not so great wine sometimes, about whether we have to go through the legislature, clearly define that so we don't end up being in lawsuits forever, or not. And the problem comes with this port, harbor district being responsible for Shelter Cove, and for Trinidad, and for coastal areas. And so what we have to do, if we're going to have a port that really functions independently, is carve port activity out of that harbor district in such a way that it's consistent with the vote of the people that created the harbor district and consistent with state laws for responsibility. So it does take a discussion with attorneys in the legislature to figure out what the proper course of action is.
Kind of like for January, we're not going to be meeting next in December, but for January, Bob Merrill, the director, North Coast Director, Coastal Commission, has said that he would speak. So he'll be our guest speaker for the next meeting, and hopefully both the topic. And I'm going to introduce Doug here. This is a new face. Doug is a newcomer from San Diego. And,
Oh, Doug. Hi. Very welcome, Doug. This is my second week here. I
Oh,
arrived on the 9th. My wife and I are from San Diego. And I think the biggest attraction to Humboldt County has got to be the redwood forest. I went there this weekend, and I'm just totally amazed at walking amongst the avenue of giants and along Creek River redwoods up there by Ortiz. And if you were to, advocate the use of dock, okay, when the cruise ships would come in, I was wondering, has anybody done a coastal feasibility of being able to bring those cruise ships in here? Because
I could answer that.
yeah, okay, so that's number one question. The second question is, has there ever been a marketing strategy as who are the groups that we want to bring into Eureka Harbor? Okay, so that we need to know who our target audience is before we can start improving, attractions for it. Because once we formulate who our target audience is, then that'll better allow us to focus on these particular areas for land use around the harbor. Because you could build it up, but if you don't know who your target audience is, the money's just kind of sitting there.
There's a process for that already, but
There
it
is.
hasn't been exercised because of lack of resources.
Okay.
Well, actually, the city of Eureka did put out an RFP to start to get a marketing company to brand Eureka and to decide who we're trying to market to. And all that information is live and happening right now. There's focus groups for citizens to participate within, theoretically. They're supposed to be welcoming input, and they've had some meetings, public meetings, so you should definitely attend some of those. The thing about the cruise ships is that they plan out 2 or 3 years in advance. We cannot guarantee that we will have an open port, an open harbor, because we don't have enough shipping. And so the Army Corps doesn't prioritize us when other ports are needing dredging, and they maybe got 100 ships a year, and we have 6. Why would they prioritize us, other than that there's safety issues, the fact we have the Coast Guard, But for an actual cruise ship to plan 2 years ahead, they have to know that that port's gonna be open. And we've had times when our port's not open.
And not only open, but when the cruise ship 2 years ahead sets up its tickets, it says, in 2 years when we go to Humboldt Bay, you can take a trip to see the large redwood tree for $69, and you can go to Sequoia Park for $35, and you can do this and do this.
Those are
and do
excursions,
this.
right?
Yeah,
There's nobody in town that has put those kinds of programs together that quote prices and can actually know that they'll be available or in operation in 2 years from now to be able to provide that. And that's been the problem, because somebody's got to make a 2-year early investment in buses and people and drivers and food and contacts and tickets and those sorts of things.
That's where this group
well,
can
we
be
did,
instrumental
we
doing.
were successful in doing that. We had a cruise ship come in.
And it's not just the cruise ships. I mean, with the way the economy is right now, and the distance between us and the Far East, Japan, South Korea, China, I mean, we were talking about getting our politicians and making them a little bit more, their voices louder, you know, to lobby Eureka to bring in those shipping industries to come to us, you know, because if we can make that happen,
You
then
should have moved up here a couple of years ago.
you know what? I'm conservative. I served in the military. I'm a veteran, and I appreciate the salute to veterans at the rec center the other week. And I can see there's a lot of people who love their country here, but I see a lot of potential for commerce and industry to take advantage of that boom that we have in this economy. I mean, to just sit on our thumbs would be a waste of time and our resources. So whoever our representatives are, bring them to this meeting here, and I'm going to be, you know, I'll attend as much as I can.
Are you retired here?
Pardon me?
Are you retired here?
No. My wife is a provider with Open Door, and I actually work for the census. So,
Yeah.
so it keeps me on my toes. But anyways, I see those two avenues of potential groups that we can market to, and you guys gotta get the younger generation in here also. You know, if you could just tell those millennials to just say, hey, be part of this group. This is your community. This is your legacy in the future. If we could get like an explorer group to be part of this, wow, that would be great, wouldn't it?
True.
Reach out to the high schools.
Well, there's Rotaract. They're the young millennials that
There you
are
go.
part of Rotary that are supposed to be about business.
Okay, what is that business club in high school called? You know what I'm talking about?
Rotaract is for young, but they're after high school.
Yeah, I'm talking about while they're inside high school. Anyways.
Well, let's start wrapping it up here. I think that we do have the attention of other civic organizations are calling me, asking, since we agree, how can we get involved? This last month has been kind of an eye-opener for me. And I'd like to follow up with Gary. You were leading to something. What's on your mind? You had something that...
Yeah, we could have the greatest, busiest port in the world, but if you have no way to get the goods from the port to wherever they have to go, except bloody Highway 101, which is a joke, it ain't gonna happen. You can't concentrate on the port without coming up with some sort of alternate transportation system. That means rail, principally rail. That's just all there is to it. If you haven't got a railroad going to the east, you aren't going to get the goods out of the port. You gotta, it's a chicken and the egg situation. You gotta have both. Yes.
The problem with that at the state legislature level is a bounded budget for roads. And do you spend 300 miles to get up to 100,000 people, $80 million, or do you spend $80 million on the Long Beach Freeway so that 8 million people can take advantage of that money.
Fully
And
understand.
that's the problem.
I fully understand, but there's got to be a way to solve it. If you don't solve it, then this is just an exercise in futility.
And I want to take off that. The first thing we have to do is say that's what we want to do.
Right.
And we have not yet, in my opinion, got to that point. You know, we've talked about it, this and that, but there's that big, what I call a big lie out there that, you know, our population does not want that. You know, I'm sorry, people I talk to want it. And that's what drives me, but we are not to that point.
The biggest
And that's
thing
why
that
I
concerns me is we've got a dying economy here. I mean, it's shrinking.
Oh, yeah.
Will County, the land is not quite right.
And Wendell Williams going out of business.
There you go.
Oh, are there?
Really?
Yeah, Judy has one.
How much time and effort would it take to get together a group of willing participants, including attorneys or whatever, to go to the legislature, to really start to define that?
Yeah, throw about $250,000 together and you'll be able to do that.
Okay, so take that much local money to put that
Or
together.
state money, somebody's money.
Well, I think the first question is in terms of how do you get a group going through the voice. And, you know, my target would be with the Board of Supervisors. It has to be somebody other than the Harbor Working Group, because we've been talking about this since 2012. And we've gone to the board of the city and the district. I think there have been 3 times when the decisions gave us thumb up, still not there. So it has to be other groups collaborating together. I believe that the Eureka Chamber of Commerce has opened the door. He said we're interested, we agree, what can we do? So my question would be back to you then, whoever you raised today. If you know, think of an organization that would be involved and you can talk to, let's do it. I'd be willing to go talk to people. Hopefully they can get some support to do it, because I don't want everybody just to hear from me. But that's the question back to you, are we at that point to where we want to get proactive and try to move it forward? And I would say the target would be the Board of Supervisors. We have to give them something to look at in terms of what's the decision that would be asked to make. And if it's focused towards going to the state legislature, the state, then we need to form a picture of what is it that we want the Board of Supervisors to ask the state legislature. So with that, do we have a topic for next meeting, knowing that Bob Merle's going to be here?
Yeah, Bob, how can you help us?
Okay.
In January.
It's going to talk about what it takes to get a certified plan.
Bob, what's it going to take to get a certified port management? And the reason the term certified port management plan, that's what's said in the Coastal Act. So what the Coastal Act, remember the last presentation we had, I'll pull that part, it said, if you have a certified port management plan, you get to take permit jurisdiction. So that's the official term, but I mean, it makes sense because it is within a defined boundary.
Like what Ken's talking about.
Yeah, that to me has got to go through the legislature. Because you can't do that. You can't change what the people voted in originally without either the people re-voting on it or the legislature.
Any final questions and comments? Thank you for being here.
Thanks for